So your response to that text that asks you to do a gig is really important. And the way that you respond to it or deal with it says a lot about your character. And it often determines whether or not you get calls and texts for gigs in the future. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to respond to gig texts. So let's get to it. Hey, and welcome to Music Space, where we help working musicians just like you learn how to quickly and easily make a living with your craft. So if you're new here to the channel, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded to the channel. So the way that you communicate with other musicians and people who reach out to you to do gigs through text and calls and things like that is vitally important. And as I stated, it can often mean the difference between you getting calls or not, or texts or not in the future for gigs. Now, some time ago, I did a video on how to ask someone to do a gig properly, and I'll link that for you in a card above. So be sure to check that out. But proper communication goes both ways. And this channel, again, is about helping you make money and helping you make more money. And your communication skills is a big part of that. And bad communication often means less money in your pocket. And in some cases, it can mean you being a broke and struggling musician. So let's get to how to respond properly to these texts and messages and things like that so that you stay in the rotation of people to ask to do gigs. So the first thing you have to do is make sure you respond to these messages and texts in a timely manner. Do not wait hours and hours or even days to respond to these messages and texts if it's possible. That kind of stuff just reeks of unprofessionalism. Having people waiting on you to respond to them is just not good for anybody. In a lot of cases, especially in today's sort of rushed society, a lot of these gigs come last minute, which makes it obvious, like when somebody's texting you, why you need to respond in a timely manner. But even in the cases where it's not a last minute gig, the person that's reaching out to you could be, on a timetable of some sort, or just trying to be professional with the people that's asking them, are they available to do the gig? Or it could just simply be that the person that's asking you to do the gig likes to do things professionally and timely. So you waiting hours upon hours and sometimes even days to respond to messages like this automatically get you put in that unprofessional category. And it can get you taken off that list of people to call for gigs really quickly. So make sure you're always responding to gig texts and people asking you to do gigs in a timely manner. Now, also something you want to do when you're responding to gig texts, when you have to turn them down because you can't do the gig for some reason, is express regret. But not just regret for the sake of regret itself, but genuine regret. Let the people that's reaching out to you and taking the time to ask you to do the gig that you're sorry that you have to turn down the gig and that you can't do this particular gig. This goes a long way with dealing with people and communicating with them effectively. And to be clear here, I'm not talking about some sobby rom-com type of apology or anything like that. I'm just talking about a few words to express an apology for not being able to do the gig. Something as simple as, hey, I can't make this one. I would love to do it if I could. It's really that simple. And again, this is something that goes over really well with the people or the person that's asking you to do the gig, and it lets them know that they can reach out to you again in the future. And it goes over really well, especially when you combine it with responding in a timely manner. And that leads me to the next point. But right before we get to that next point, if you're getting value out of this video, or you get value out of my videos on this channel in general, do me a quick favor and subscribe to the channel and hit the like button on this video. Go ahead and do that now. That lets me know that you appreciate this type of content, and it lets me know what type of content I should make for you in the future. Now, the next point is one really good thing to do when you're responding to gig texts is ask them to keep you in mind for future gigs. This is another thing that expresses that you are being genuine and you're not just being some snobby musician guy like you, I would never like to work with you kind of person. That's what those sort of one word response texts, sort of imply, that you're snobbish and stuff in a way. So like you get a text that says something like, hey, are you available on such and such date at such and such time for such and such pay? And you respond with something like, nah, sorry. It's like, okay, guess I won't be asking you to do any gigs in the future. That just doesn't work well with, keeping you on the list of musicians for people to call for future gigs. But again, you want to express your interest or your willingness to play with these people or this person if they call you again in the future. Because if this does nothing else at all, it really literally tells them that they can, call you again in the future for gigs. But this is also one of those good measure sort of things. So always express this interest by letting them know that they can call you again in the future, or asking them to let you know if anything comes up in the future that you can work with them on. This always goes over well, and it's definitely something that will keep you in that rotation of people to call for gigs list. Now, also something you want to be careful about doing when you're responding to these texts is asking too many questions. And admittedly, this is a sort of tricky one because a lot of times you'll get these vague texts that don't let you know something. They'll ask you, hey, are you available on Friday? And you're like, well, available for what? And again, this is something that I talk about in the other video that I did that I linked above. So again, check that video out. But it's one of those things that depending on the questions that you ask and the answers that they give, it may require you to ask more questions because they may be just as vague, or they may not give you as many details as you may need. But this sort of situation notwithstanding, just be really careful about going overboard and asking too many questions, especially a lot of random questions, when you get these texts. Asking questions like, who's going to be on this instrument and can they play? Or who's going to be on vocals and can they sing? Or any sort of other random questions that's kind of not that, pertinent to whether or not you can accept the gig or not. And this is going to be different for different people and different musicians are going to have different questions. I'm just saying, be careful about those type of questions that may make you come off as like, oh, I'm too good for this. Who's going to be there and who's going to be playing with me? And I can't play with certain people and that type of thing. And also asking these types of questions, and too many of these types of questions, makes the person that's asking you seem like they have to go through a lot of red tape and a lot of details just to even deal with you. You sort of become that person that nobody likes to work with, because it's like at some point, like, hey dude, I've given you all of the information. Can you do the gig or not? And ironically, people who do this and ask these sort of random questions, and too many of them, also tend to fall in that, not responding in a timely manner category. So again, just make sure that this is something that you're really cautious about, asking too many questions. Now, a really super tip that you can do is that you can send them a follow-up text after the time has passed of the gig that they ask you to do. And this again is really one of those super tips. You want to impress somebody while not only keeping yourself on that list and that rotation of people to call for gigs, but kind of pushing yourself to the top of that list. Hit them with a follow-up text after the fact. Like, say the gig that you turned down or that you couldn't do happened on a Saturday night, and then that following Monday, like that Monday afternoon, you hit them with a text that says something like, hey man, sorry again, I couldn't make the gig. I really hope that everything went well. I'm telling you, this is it. This is the super tip. This is the tip that will keep your number locked in their phone and keep you on that list of people to call, and again, move you up that list. This is really the equivalent of that first text you send after a first date, letting them know, hey, I really had a good time and things went well. It just kind of eases the other person's mind kind of thing. This is almost the equivalent of that. It just gives them a level of reassurance and confidence that you're cool and they can work with you. But most of all, it keeps you in mind and it helps them to not forget about you. And that's what this tip is about. So these are some rules of thumb to follow when you're responding to gig texts and you're trying to communicate effectively. And again, they will help you stay on the list of people to call when somebody needs the services that you offer as a musician. So make sure these things are a part of your regular way that you respond to these texts, and make them a habit so that they become second nature. But the question is for you. What are some ways that you respond to people who reach out to you to do gigs through text messages and things like that? What are some ways that you found effective in responding to them? Jump down in the comment section and let me know. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on that. And listen, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do hope that it provided some insight on this subject for you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Again, go hit that subscribe button now and hit the like button on this video. And here are some other videos that you can check out right now.